Have you ever changed your backing data model? Then all of a sudden, all your clients explode. It's not because you broke your code, you broke your contract. And most times it's because you're exposing your domain model or data model. You're not just sharing data, you're leaking implementation details. What you can do is start treating your API really like an ACL, an anti-corruption layer. And that does not mean making 7 different layers of DTOs. So here's a typical scenario, somebody using an HTTP API. So the client makes a request, hits your database, maybe you're pulling that almost exactly using some type of ORM, really your data model, and then you're returning that back to the client. And what you've done is just leak implementation details. That means that you won't be able to evolve easily or change your internals without causing a breaking change to your clients. A big part of the reason for this, especially with HTTP APIs, is conflating your data model with your resource model. Before I illustrate with an example, I'd like to thank Kurrent for sponsoring this video. Kurrent's an event-native data platform that feeds real-time business-critical data in fine-grained streams from origination to destination, enhancing data analytics and AI outcomes. For more on Kurrent, check out the link in the description. Here's what I mean by that. Here's an example. Let's say this is the JSON response of an HTTP API for returning book details. Now, you could be thinking about any type of read model, a document store, relational database. If you're using an ORM, this is what you're spitting back out to the client. Now, we have our book ID, title, author ID, date, pages. Seems simple enough, but the reality of it is you probably want to be doing some type of composition. There's more information that the client actually needs rather than having to make a lot of requests to get a lot of data from different sources, different parts of your system. You actually probably want to do that composition and return that. So I'm not returning the book ID. What the heck is that? There's some identifier like the ISBN that the client may actually understand a little bit better. The title. The author is a complex object. I don't just have it flat. I have more information like the ID, which again is more something contextual that somebody could understand or use. It's still unique. The name, maybe the bio of the author. Date, pages, the price, the number of reviews that the book's had, the rating. They're actually, or the average rating, they're actually all kind of this information, the author, the price, reviews, they're all kind of probably different parts of your system where you want to do this composition. So what does that have to do with breaking changes? It's pretty much everything. In my first example, that data model is how I'm persisting data with the book ID, the author ID, how those are foreign keys potentially to other collections or other tables. Our clients don't care at all about any of this information. They care about that composition that I made about getting relevant data to them. Now, there's a big difference between the two because the first one, if I'm not exposing that, then I can iterate and change on how that actually looks internal into my system. Your system's gonna want to evolve and change over time, parts of it anyways, and you don't want to be making changes there that are gonna affect your clients. So that means that thinking about what your responses are, or requests, I'll talk about in a second, is being just thinking of them as a contract and putting a little bit more detail and thought about what your responses are so you're not making breaking changes. You gotta leave yourself open to options. Now here's a very simple example of this. This is the composition that I have. And one thing I again want to point out is how I have the author as a separate object because I have other things involved. It's not flat. The same thing can be applicable here to something like the price. Is it really just the price? Or do I actually need as well, possibly, the currency? So if I do that, at this point, the way it looked, I would have to add the currency flat, a part of this response, rather than, because it's kind of an afterthought and I don't want to make a breaking change. However, if I put a little bit more thought of it to it initially, I may have started out with just the amount kind of in this object, or maybe I had a little bit of foresight that I include the currency, even if I was only doing USD as the example, is to be thinking a little bit more about what your responses are and what that actual structure needs to look like. These names and everything, they don't need to map at all, nor should they, to a one-to-one to what your data model is. You gotta come from it from the client's perspective. Now I gotta make a few points to this. The first is you may be in a context where you are the producer creating this API and the consumer, where if you do make a breaking change, you can just change your clients, not that big of a deal. If that's the case, then you don't need to put as much necessarily thought into what that structure of your API and responses are gonna be. However, you may be in a situation where no, once we release this to the public, there's no going back because I can't change these clients and I have to version and have a version strategy. So it really depends where you're living. Can you make these changes? and willy-nilly and don't worry about breaking changes, maybe that's great. The second part to this is cost. There's absolutely a cost either upfront and kind of trying to figure out what your API surface looks like, what the responses, as the example that I'm using, are looking like, and spending a little bit of time, or maybe not a lot of time, but kind of spending more time maybe than you are used to on really defining what that contract is, because that's what it is. So you're spending time up front, or if you're not going to be doing that, you may be spending time later trying to figure out how you're versioning potentially, or if you don't version, which hopefully you can deal with, is how you can evolve that API in a meaningful way. Either way, you're likely going to be spending some time somewhere. And quickly just jump back to give a few more examples here, is the reviews and the rating. Aren't those things really together, probably coming from the same source of information? Do you want it flat like this? Potentially, if you're adding something else to it? Or do you want to say, okay, well, no, really reviews, this is the collection, and we have a review count, the average rating. Same thing with the date. That was in our data model because it pertained to the book. But we got more stuff going on here. So is it really the date, or is it really when it was published? That's actually what the date was. So what reflects better? This sounds trivial, but you can't just make these changes because they would be breaking changes. Now, my example is just using HTTP response, but this is applicable for any type of API service. So this actually is also applicable to your request. You need to think about it the same way and put some thought into what does our request body actually look like? What does the URI actually look like? If you're not using something like Hypermedia, I'll have a link in the description on how you can evolve your HTTP API using Hypermedia. But if you're not using that, then you do have to put a little bit more thought into your URI structures, which I don't love. Same thing applies if you're building some type of package library where people are downloading that and programmatically using your API. Thinking about the arguments, the responses, the order of arguments. It's all the same thing about whether you're putting some thought into it from the consumer's perspective on what those arguments would be, what the response is going to be, if something might throw, how you're returning the result. There just needs to be a little bit more thought so you're not making breaking changes. And to me, that's making the distinction between what's internal, what's an implementation detail, and what's external, what's public. What's going to be your contract? Thinking about, okay, I have clients, they're interacting with this thing, this is my API. My API is kind of that boundary, that guard, that wall that's protecting what my actual domain is, which my internals actually are. And the way I like to think about it is that API is an ACL, is an anti-corruption layer. That's really where you're doing translation. This is what the public understands. This is how I evolve this thing separately from how I evolve internally in my domain. Let your database be able to change. Let your domain be able to change. Have separately what your contract is, that API, is really your anti-corruption layer that you can kind of deal with completely separate and do that translation. Another way to say this is don't have externals coupled to your internals. That means don't expose those data models or those domain entities. Don't do it. Rather, expose something separately that you can evolve as a contract. Now, the thing is, this all has a cost and a trade-off. I jokingly said at the very beginning, this doesn't mean having 7 different layers of deep TO mappings. You do not need that. What you need to realize is, do I have coupling from something external that I do not control, that I cannot change, and if I do need to change and evolve my internals, well, they're screwed and they're going to have to follow my breaking changes, or I just straight up break them. If that's not an option, there is a cost to this with maintaining what that API, what that ACL is. There's cost involved here. So don't go and create mappings in composition for something if you control the clients and a small number of them that you can just go change. If you need to evolve, you can do both at the same time. If you can evolve, put a little bit more thought, build an API out that you can deal with as a contract. This video is purely spurred on by the conversation I had with David Fowler. I'll have a link to it at the end, where he mentioned exactly that, kind of breaking changes and that you just can't make them in his situation. I just thought it was a fascinating conversation, and I thought about my own context. If you like videos like this, you can join my channel and get access to a private Discord server, or if you just want to support it, the link's in the description on how to join. If you have thoughts or questions around this topic, how you deal with breaking changes or not, let me know in the comments, or if you have any other thoughts in general. And please subscribe for more videos on software architecture and design. Thanks.